Hey everyone, Kurt here. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a less common approach type that Flightsim sometimes doesn't even show, even when it's an available approach at an airport. This one's called an LDA. LDA stands for Localizer Directional Aid, and it's a type of approach that's used in locations where it's not possible to run a full ILS. These are becoming less common today, as RNAV can often cover these types of locations, but before RNAV was around, if you needed to get an instrument approach into an airport in a narrow canyon or something of that nature, you did it using an LDA. Just to be super clear, I've never had an instrument license. I'm not qualified to do anything other than just kind of conceptually show you how this sort of an approach works. You'll see just how unqualified I am to teach in any sort of detail. So for any of you instrument rated guys, don't bother pointing out all of my errors or incorrect phrasing or anything else. Believe me, I know. This video is just an overview and it's for entertainment only. For today's example, we're going to use Van Nuys, California, because it's a seriously weird one. But it's a good example of how the FAA can put together an approach using an LDA. I'm not sure why Van Nuys has this approach other than maybe to cover outages on their own ILS, but this airport has a VOR on field and VOR approaches, so again, it's kind of unclear why this LDA exists. If one of you knows, drop a note in the comments. I'd love to know. It's a weird one because it uses a different airport's localizer to get you in. You'll come in on the Burbank localizer. By chance, the final approach fix for Burbank is the Buddy intersection, which is located directly over the Van Nuys Airport, and thus Buddy also serves as the missed approach point for the LDA Charlie at Van Nuys. It's super helpful in that way because you get the marker beacon noise to let you know when you've arrived at your minimum descent altitude, and you can decide if you're missed or not. Assuming you have the field in sight, it's a circle to land, so tower would give you a pattern entry instruction, which is typically going to be left downwind to 16 right. I assume 34 left is also an option, but for today's example, we're going to use 16 right. Normally an LDA wouldn't be this weird. A good example of a more typical one would be like South Lake Tahoe, which has an LDA approach that looks more like an ILS. It isn't an ILS because it has about a 5-degree offset from the center line of the runway, and they do this to kind of keep you over the lake and away from the mountains. And then about 4.5 miles from the field, you come to the end of the approach and you're at your missed approach point. Then, assuming you had the field in sight, you'd continue straight in that example. So let's have a look at this in a little more detail, and then we'll see how bad I can screw it up in the sim. So this approach starts from the Van Nuys VOR, so air traffic control would bring you into that initial fix at 4,400 feet, and you'd depart the VOR using the 242 radial until crossing Silex at 3,700 feet. You can see that Silex is defined by where the Los Angeles radial 316 crosses the Burbank localizer. From there, you'd do a standard teardrop turn to the localizer. The localizer heading is 079. So the reciprocal is 259. In a teardrop, you're going to start from 30 degrees off of that reciprocal heading. So in this case, after crossing Silex, we'd fly about 1 minute outbound on a heading of 229, 259 minus 30. After Silex, we're also able to start our descent to 3,400 feet. After we've gone outbound 1 minute, you make a standard rate turn to intercept the localizer on 079 degrees. Since you're not going to Burbank, you must ignore the glide slope for this one. The glide slope is higher than you want to be, and there could be planes using the ILS to get into Burbank that are going to be above you. Instead, you manually step down your altitude. So we're going to stay 3,400 until crossing Silex, and then down to the minimum descent altitude, which in our case is, since we're below 140 knots, would be 1,500 feet MSL. You'll see in the flight, I couldn't get to the chart, and I misremembered that minimum descent altitude is 1,600 feet. That's my bad, but actually not bad to have higher minimums. Remaining above that MDA, you'd continue following the localizer until crossing the Buddy intersection. If you can't see the field at this point, you'd be required to take the missed approach, or if you have reasonable visibility, you'd then be given the pattern instructions from the tower. So it's a fun one. Let's try it out and we'll see how I do. I ended up hand flying this entirely. I tried to record a version where I was going to use the autopilot to keep everything nice and clean, but I was having all kinds of issues with it. So rather than dying trying to fight the autopilot, I decided to go back and do it by hand. I'm glad I did. Not only do I need more IMC time hand flying, but it's more fun anyhow, even if it is a lot of work. Which I will mess it all up, I guarantee it, but we'll get there. We'll live. But this is just about kind of showing the concept, not about showing you really how to do it. I have no idea what I'm doing, really. So anyway, we'll stay on 4,400 feet until we get to Silex. After that, we're going to make the start a descent to 3,400, which will be happening, you know, in zero viz. So I'll probably get a little hairball, but you know, I will do my best. So what I'm looking for right now is for that bottom needle on the OBS to start coming in, and that'll be my hint that we're getting close enough to the VOR. Okay, so needles went off, so we are over the station, so I'm going to start my turn, 242, and plus a little bit to get back on the radial, and I'm going to let the plane start descending now for 3,400. Oh, I wasn't supposed to descend, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to stay at 4,400 till Silex. No problem. And I just went over my radial. Busy, busy, busy. Alright, try and pick that up again. Now normally you'd have, at this point you'd set the other radio to give you the crossing radial from the VOR on Los Angeles. That'll tell you the intersection. I'm using GPS to know where the intersection is, which is probably against the rules in the real world if you're committed to radio nav, but I don't know. I don't care because this is how I'm doing it. So just trying to keep that bottom needle reasonably centered. Switch this guy to our inbound course now, because when I switch to Burbank, it'll make sense. And Silex, you can see on the 750 now is coming up. And I'm putting a bug in there on about 229, which will be our heading coming off of Silex. And we're there now. So start my timer for 1 minute. Turn to 229. And I can start my descent now. And this is where it'll get stupid and I'll screw it all up. I'm going to switch my nav 1 to Burbank now. So when we're flying the localizer, we're going to need to ignore the glide slope, because the glide slope is going to be well above us. We're going to be below it. Okay. And our minute's up, so we will start our turn. bunch of flaps. Cross just beyond the localizer here. It's okay, we'll clean that up. Oh, I'm not used to this. Okay, so then we're 3400's our restriction until we pass Silex again. So for the moment I'm navigating on the top needle. I'm blasting through our altitude. Okay. Goodness. Okay, so now we're basically following the localizer, maintaining our 3400. Well, we should be at 3400. We're a little bit low. If I knew what I was doing, we'd be at 3400. And we're waiting on Silex again. And basically just trying to keep my needles, well, that upper needle centered. Still losing some altitude here. Okay, so as we cross Silex here, then we are clear down to our minimum, which is 1600, I believe. Not going to try and move that chart right now. So we'll go ahead and let that descent start. I believe if I was that far off of the localizer, I would have had to call a miss if we were doing this for real. But we got it gathered up again. Got ground contact out the side. That's helpful. Does mean I can see some buildings down there. Okay, I can see the airport now. And at this point, you would get a pattern entry instruction. In this case, it would be a left traffic to 16 right, maintaining visual. And you have to stay, of course, within the limits of the airport airspace. We don't want to violate into Burbank's airspace, which is just a short distance ahead. So since we have visual, we can go below our minimum descent altitude now. But we're not gonna. This pattern altitude here will be about 1800, so I'm just going to hang out here at 16 until we get to a logical. I made that turn too early. Until we get to a logical point out here. Second notch of flaps. It's a little early. Normally I'd do that on base, but I feel kind of task saturated, so I just want to get it out of the way. And we'll start getting set up for our final approach speed. About 70. Do not want to lose visual contact with the airport. And this isn't going to be a base so much as a U-turn, but here we go. I did shut off the wind for this because being pretty bad at it anyways, I didn't need the added difficulty of trying to track needles in the clouds with wind when I don't even know what I'm doing. Didn't even die. While in-game Kurt has nothing important to say, this is Editor Kurt. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you who hung out here during the long dry spell between the last few videos. Production should be picking up again as I'm all set up in my new place. Thank you also to all of the new subscribers. Anyone who hung out till the end of this one is a hero. Thank you. I hope I've earned a like or a subscription. If there are topics you'd like me to talk about, please drop a note in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, take care.